memories, misty, water-coloured memories of the way we were. Do you recognise that line? What song does it come from? Memories by Barbra Streisand. You've got it. It's a line, memories, misty, water-coloured memories of the way we were. It's a line that could easily be applied to what was likely to be going through the minds of the disciples that evening when Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." This small band of disciples are now back in Galilee, probably in Capernaum, where Peter had lived, just by the side of Lake Tiberias, or Lake Galilee as we call it now. Jerusalem has been left behind. The trauma of Jesus' brutal death is behind them. Their scattering through fear behind them. Their tentative gathering as news filtered through to them from the women that Jesus had risen. Hiding together in a locked room to consider what they should do, how to make sense of it all, behind them. The joy of Jesus appearing to them, speaking peace, showing them his hands and side, telling them that the Father had sent him, so he was sending them, breathing on them and telling them to receive the Holy Spirit and to forgive sins. All of that is behind them. A new future is stretching ahead, full of promise. They had travelled the 80 miles back up to Galilee with a new sense of purpose and focus, but still probably unsure of exactly what to do next. We can only wonder how Peter's "I'm going fishing" was spoken, whether it was sudden and impulsive and in fitting with his character, blurted out as perhaps he grew impatient with the sitting around talking about everything and trying to work out the best plan of action, or whether it was a gradual thought that took shape, a decision to return to doing what he knew best, as the smell of the sea, the lap of the water on the shore, the sun beginning to go down, maybe drew him, and the longing to be out in a boat again, doing something useful, sent him striding to the shore, gathering the nets, and setting out with the others who decided to go with him. I wonder what expectations Peter and the others had as they pushed the boat out and jumped into it. Did they simply hope for a decent catch to feed their families? Or were they excited at the thought of bringing in a great catch, like the one that had their nets breaking 3 years earlier when Jesus had called Peter to leave fishing and follow him? We don't know. But we do know that they went out at this time when fishing was usually fruitful. And they caught nothing. It's not hard to imagine their disappointment. It would be familiar to them. It's not hard to imagine the memories that would have stirred as they once more took up the rhythms of cleaning, casting, waiting, hauling, mending, casting, waiting, hauling. The weight of the heavy drag of the nets through the water, getting harder as arms and bodies tired, with the repetitive strain, and no reward to boost their bodies or spirits. Maybe thinking of that time that Jesus turned up and told them to put their nets down once more, and when they did, they caught so much fish that the net broke. And now, all that work and nothing. This is life. Sometimes it is simply hard work, effort, and failure. Times when we can pour into a person, a project, a mission, a relationship, a job, and at the end of the day, or even when the sun starts to come up on a new day, the hoped-for results fail to materialize. John Calvin, famous theologian, wrote of these verses that God often tries believers that he may lead them more to highly value his blessing. If we were always prosperous, whenever we put our hand to labour, scarcely any man would attribute the blessing of God as the success of his exertions. All would boast of their industry and would kiss their hands. In other words, whenever things are going well, it's easy to quickly credit ourselves. We think that our work ethic, our strategic thinking, Our creativity is the reason for our success, and we begin to think of ourselves more highly than we ought. He has a point. It's a dangerous place to be in as a church, to actually believe that we, under our own power, creativity, and strategic thinking, are the reason for some of the good things that have happened in the life of the church. These gifts and skills are, of course, important. But if we fail to guard against the pride that can creep in, we may find ourselves facing failure quicker than we think. It's a dangerous place for any church to be in. But the same thing can happen to all of us as individuals too. We can fall into the trap of believing that the good things that have happened to us in our life are due to our own effort and our skill, our intellect. Failure can be a good eye-opener. It may be painful, but it can be fruitful too. Because standing on the shore is Jesus, and he sees it all. And he calls out, "Guys, haven't you any fish?" What a question. Talk about kicking a guy when he's down. It's a bit like asking a football fan, "Haven't your team scored any goals?" after the final whistle's gone and you've been beaten 5-0. Or working hours trying to fix the lawnmower or the car, or fill in a tax return, or the statistical return for presbytery, and someone asks, "Haven't you finished?" The pain of having salt rubbed into a wound. There's only one honest and simple answer, and it's no. It's a painful admission, and that's the answer the disciples give. And then the guidance comes. Put your nets on the other side. There are some there. Despite being tired and disappointed, they take the advice. The stranger on the shore can see something they cannot. And they seem now to have the humility to recognize that even with all their experience, they still have blind spots. The events of the last few weeks, the walk back from Jerusalem to Galilee, has given them time to reflect, time for things to sink in, for them to begin to understand things about Jesus and his teaching that were only now beginning to make some sense to them. And wouldn't you know it, when they follow Jesus' instructions, the nets begin to feel heavy. They pull and they drag, and they can't haul it in. There are so many fish in it. And John, his eyes are the first to be opened, and as soon as he utters the words, "It is the Lord," Peter grabs his robe, throws it on, and once more jumps out of the boat to reach Jesus. The others tow the net full of fish behind them, and they reach the shore. And Jesus is there. And there's a fire burning, and fish cooking, and bread ready to be eaten. The risen Christ is once more among them, ready to serve his weary friends. And it is as natural as breathing. He's already provided what is needed for breakfast. The bread and the fish are there waiting for them. He's prepared a table for them on the beach. And the simple meal becomes a feast as Jesus tells them to bring some of the large fish that they've caught. And Simon Peter climbs back in the boat and drags the net to the shore single-handedly. This time, the nets don't break. They hold. Not one fish is lost. They knew it was the Lord. "Come and have breakfast," says Jesus. And Jesus took the bread and he gave it to them. And he did the same with the fish. Misty, watercolored memories of the way we were. The memories that would have been stirred in those disciples of the time in the upper room, the time when the disciples who walked their road to Emmaus that we talked about last week, when the bread was broken, they recognized Jesus. It's so easy to go back into the ordinariness of our daily lives and forget to keep our eyes open for Jesus. Forget that he is there waiting for us with nourishment and rest when we've been working hard to labor for his kingdom, to labour to provide for our families, for the daily grind that can be hard sometimes. He's there and he's waiting. And he asks us to come and to eat and to be refreshed and to remember that he is with us, ready to direct us, ready to guide us. Peter, in some cases, some would say, had fallen back into going back to what he had been asked to leave. But there's no condemnation from Jesus. He simply comes, he observes, and he says, look, if you're going to do that, do it this way. They were open to something new. And as we'll find out next week when we carry on the story a bit more further, what Jesus did with Peter following that encounter.